Ir šiandien turim labai įkvepiančią ir praktinę dalį, kaip iš tikrųjų mums atsisakyti tos popierinių procesų logistikoje, kaip mums atsisakyti tų tonų popierių keliaujančių su vilkikų vairuotojais ant jų kelių, kokius praktinius žingsnius turi žengti ir verslas, ir valstybė, ką galim padaryti dabar, ką mes privalėsime daryti po kelių metų ir ką mes visi jau būsime padarę po 10. Na tai ir kviečiu pradėti šią sesiją ir kviečiu pirmąją pranešėją, kuri pas mus jungiasi nuotoliniu būdu. Tai aš gal persijungsiu anglų kalbą. I would like to welcome Ms. Lia Potec, Policy Officer for Transport from European Commission, and she will present a presentation, a major step towards rendering freight transport and logistics paperless and greener. So are you here, Lia? Can you hear us and say hello?
Yes.
Indeed, yes, I can hear you. And
Great.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for the invitation. And yes, I'd like to say that I'm sorry that I could not be with you in person today, but hopefully maybe at the next edition of the forum. Indeed, I was already presented, so I'm Policy Officer in DG Move of the European Commission, and I'm working in the unit Maritime Transport and Logistics, and I'm responsible for aspects related to digitalization of transport and logistics, and in particular, the implementation of the EU regulation on electronic freight transport information, which indeed we hope to be a major steps towards making transport and logistics cleaner, smarter and greener. I hope you hear me well. And yeah, if we can proceed to the next slide in the presentation. Thank you. The regulation is a major policy EU initiative that aims to support the digital transformation of the transport and logistics sector, as we said. And in particular, it aims to render transport paperless by removing the need to carry paper documents on board vehicles when carrying goods around Europe. In the process, we also hope to help improve visibility across the supply chain by enabling the availability and exchange in real time of the freight transport data, both in business to authority and business to business environments, and also to further support trade and transport by complementing other EU instruments and initiatives that aim to leverage the potential of digitalization for the benefit of EU businesses. And as such, the regulation is part of the wider EU efforts to make transport more sustainable, smart, and resilient, which is the main objectives of the recently adopted strategy on transport of the European Commission. Now, before I move on with my presentation, where I plan to highlight the main provisions of the regulation and how it relates to the other EU initiatives that aim at enabling the electronic exchange of information to facilitate trade and transport, and also to present a timeline for the implementation, also what we estimate to be the expected benefits. I would like to play a video that we have made to explain in rather simple terms what are the inefficiencies in transport and logistics that the regulation also tries to help to remove, as well as the vision of tomorrow that the regulation aims to bring to reality when it comes to the information exchange of in the transport sector. So if we can please first play the movie now. Thank you.
Within Europe, every day, hundreds of thousands of containers and pallets are transported by road, rail, sea, air, and inland waterways. To enable these movements, the different actors involved need to exchange information at each stage in the logistics chain. Commercial concerns, information fragmentation, and the continuous use of paper documents still hamper an efficient and real-time information exchange, introducing unnecessary waiting times, unpredictable arrivals, penalties, and higher administrative and operational costs and emissions. Digital transformation offers an opportunity to address these limitations and improve the quality, efficiency, and sustainability of freight transport services. Since 2015, a group of more than 100 stakeholders, coordinated by the European Commission, work together in the Digital Transport and Logistics Forum in order to reach this objective. The DTLF supports the European Commission in implementing 100% digital information exchanges and a shared transport and logistics data space. Within this context, the DTLF contributes to the development of the implementation rules of the new EU regulation on electronic exchange of freight transport information. FT concerns transport information required by EU and national legislation on different types of cargo carried through Europe on road, rail, inland waterways, and by air. It will allow the economic operators to record the cargo-related information only once and share it electronically with the authorities or with their business partners anytime, anywhere. The sector will slash billions of administrative costs, while more efficient logistics chains will allow additional operational savings through real-time information exchange. The FT regulation will be fully in place by 2025 and will include single data definitions for the electronic representation of the freight transport information, interoperable systems or platforms where the businesses may record and share the transport information, common rules and procedures for all competent authorities within the EU to access and process the information on the private FT platforms. Learn more on the future paperless EU transport and logistics industry on www.dtlf.eu.
Thank you. I hope you could hear it because I couldn't, but I hope there were no issues with the sound. And if you could also read the subtitles. And I hope that already helped to give you a main overview of what we're trying to achieve, and also where you can find further information later on. But still, today I would like to highlight a few key aspects, starting with the key provisions of the regulation. And if we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So first, and the core provision of the regulation that I would like you to remember is that the regulation establishes the obligation for all authorities in all the EU member states that are competent to enforce transport laws to accept information electronically when this is presented by the economic operators to prove compliance with the provisions of those transport regulations, provided that the economic operators are using a standard format that is also specified in the regulation. Now, this is very important because today very few authorities in very few member states accept electronic information only during transport documents when they do checks for compliance with the transport rules and regulation. And even when they do accept the information or documents electronically, the format can vary, and it's not always very clearly specified what format that is. That creates a lot of uncertainty for businesses, and therefore, rather than try to invest in different IT systems, hoping that they will comply with the requirements of different authorities, and also not knowing which of them would be accepting the electronic format, businesses prefer to stay with paper and not invest in the necessary IT, even though there are obvious efficiency gains of investing in the IT systems. Now, to make things simple for the economic operators, the regulation requires them to record the information and make it available to the authorities on certain platforms that are certified for compliance with the requirements that are also set in the regulation. These platforms can be either platforms that are owned by the economic operators or they are managed by service providers, but they need to be certified to comply, both the platforms and the service providers, that they comply with the requirements and implementing specifications that are set in the regulation. So that is why the regulation also provides common requirements and implementation specifications, and also provides a system for certification that will allow the platforms and the service providers to get the certification from only one certification body that is accredited in one of the EU member states. And then this certification is recognized and accepted in all the EU member states. What is also important to note is that the economic operators are not obliged, at least not for the time being, to use the electronic format. They could still use paper if for one reason or another they could not have access to an FTI platform or use the services of a service provider. So that provides them flexibility. Lastly, what I would like to highlight are the information requirements that we are talking about. These are the information that is already required by either EU or national transport laws to be presented to the authorities to prove compliance with the provisions in those laws. And to give you an impression of the types of laws that we are covering, for the EU laws, we have already identified them, and they concern combined transport, cabotage on road, but also the transport of dangerous goods, and of waste, as well as aspects relating to aviation security. And also the FTI regulation will also cover the similar types of legislation that are set at national level. What is also important to note is that we are talking about rules and information that concern the goods and the transport of the goods, where the FTI regulation does not cover the information on the means of transport and the personnel. That is for example, the registration certificates of a truck, for example, or the driving licenses of a truck driver or of a train driver. So these are not, at least not for the time being, part of the FTI regulation. We're also having discussions with our colleagues to see how we can ensure that can also be covered either as part of the FTI regulation or as part of other EU initiatives. Next slide, please. Here I try to highlight this, the geographical scope of the FTI regulation. It's important to keep in mind that the regulation covers the transport and within the territory of the EU by rail, road, inland waterways, and air. But it does not cover the information that needs to be presented to the customs authorities or to port authorities to comply with reporting formalities for customs or for maritime. So that is important to remember. However, we're trying to ensure that there is interoperability, particularly when it comes to the level of the data, so that the data that is stored in the FTI platforms can be easily reused to also generate the declarations for customs or for maritime, at least for the part that regards the transport. It also does not cover the use of, for example, contracts of carriage, like the CMRs, the CIM, in electronic format outside of the EU. But it does, and if we can go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. But the regulation does cover for the use within the EU also of the transport documents as they are known, like the CMRs, the CIM, or the airway bill. But only when they are used to prove what I said, compliance to the authorities with the transport rules. That means that the use for business-to-business communication is not directly used, but the standards that we are setting with the FTI regulation for the exchange of data can also be used for the exchange of business-to-business. The FTI platforms can be used for the exchange of information business-to-business, and also any other additional information that might be of interest for the economic operators. While, as I said, we're covering the use of the electronic transport documents like the ECMR or the ECIM. towards the authorities, it's not really covered as such, the use in courts. But we do hope that the validity of these electronic documents will also be accepted in court, because if they are good enough for acceptance to prove compliance with the transport rules, in principle, we hope that would also be sufficient reassurance for courts as well of the validity of the contracts, of the transport contracts that are stored on the FTI platforms. Next slide, please. This slide aims to highlight also the work that we are doing with a wide number of experts, both from the private sector, and in particular from the private sector, but also from representing EU authorities, to prepare the implementation specifications for the FTI regulation, as well as to coordinate with the work that is done by also another group of experts on a concept of a federated network of platforms for information sharing in multimodal transport and logistics chain. So this second one is a business-to-business concept for the exchange of information between different platforms with different specifications that, however, can talk to each other by using common interfaces. And this is also being developed as part of the wider umbrella of the Digital Transport and Logistics Forum. And we are trying to ensure that there is coordination between the work we are doing for the implementation specifications of the FTI regulation and this wider concept for the business-to-business exchange of the information. Because we would like that the FTI platforms could also be part of this federated network of platform at some point. Next slide, please. Here you see the indicative timeline for the implementation and the application of the regulation. The regulation entered into force in August last year. And it should start apply for most of its provisions in August 2024, but it will really fully apply as of August 2025. And I will explain what is the difference between these two dates of application. But before we get there, we are still in the preparatory phase of the implementation specifications, which we will need to adopt first set by February 2023, when we should have adopted the specifications for the common data set, so the specifications for the data that needs to be exchanged, but also the common rules for the and technical specifications for the systems that will be used by the authorities to access and check the information that is stored electronically by the operators on the FTI platforms. Then we also have another major deadline in August 2023, by when we should adopt the implementation specifications for the FTI platforms and the service providers. And shortly after, we will need to start working on and then adopt before the start date of application, also the rules for the certification of the FTI platforms and of the service providers. Now, coming to the start date of application, what I said, August 2024 is the main start date of application of the regulation. However, that does not cover the obligation of the member states authorities to accept the data that is stored and made available electronically on the FTI platforms. That obligation for the authorities will only start applying as of August 2025. But in the year in between, the FTI platforms and the service providers can apply and receive the certification, so that in August 2025 they are ready to make the information available to the authorities in accordance to the requirements. That obviously we will also give them time to find customers, so the economic operators can also sign up and either develop themselves these platforms and certify them, or get the services of certified FTI platforms FTI services providers. Sorry. There's also a review clause, but that's at a later stage when we will look at how the regulation has been implemented, if it has been effectively implemented, and if there are needs to adapt it, like, for example, to make it obligatory for the economic operators to use the electronic format, but also to see how to integrate with other systems for the exchange of information that is required by the authorities, so that to allow transport to be fully paperless, because we will solve the problem of transport documents, but yes, it's for driver's licenses, for certifications, for certificates of the means of transport. That's something that it's still partly travel, but definitely it's not in one place. So this is something that we'll try to look into to make sure that for both authorities and for the economic operators, all the information that is being checked on for compliance with all types of transport rules is in one place. And the next slide, please. That just summarizes the estimation of the expected impacts of the regulation once it's implemented, with very significant administrative cost savings for the businesses in the range of 20 to 27 billions over, we estimated, over about 20 years time. Which is the equivalent of millions of work hours also saved. We also foresee that there will be more efficient and smart enforcement on risk-based checks, and also better statistics for the authorities available, and also indeed to contribute to the objective of greening the transport sector by saving emissions, due to both savings on paper, but also for more efficient logistics. Next slide, please. As I noted, the FTI regulation, it's not on its own trying to digitally transform the sector. There are a host of other existing and ongoing initiatives. On the slide, you see listed what the milestones and flagships that were set in the EU strategy for sustainable and smart mobility. That yes, we try to achieve by 2030, and in a longer term also by 2050. And if you would click now, yes, you'll see, it will appear a circle that highlights the milestone to which the regulation will contribute, that is paperless freight transport by 2030. Next, please. And next, which is my last slide, basically to say that yes, we are working towards a fully digital freight transport and logistics sector to achieve seamless, safe, and efficient data exchange along the entire supply chain. And we hope that yes, we will be able to bring that reality very soon, in accordance to the timeline that I highlighted earlier. On this the next slide, I also introduced for you a number of links where you can find further information as well, also the videos, and so that you can, if you're interested, and we're also available now or later if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lia. From what I gather from my friends in the European Commission and abroad, yes, let's give applause, round of applause. From what I gather from my friends in the European Commission, you are really the one that pulls all the strings in the DTLF, with Digital Transport and Logistics Forums, which connects all the 27 member states and their experts, everyone creating how these platforms will have to look in the very, very near future. We all heard 25. So thank you, Lia Potec, very much. And does anyone has a burning question from the audience? I think we may have. Okay, so thank you very much. Ačiū labai pranešėjai iš Europos Komisijos, DG Move.